Welcome, everyone. And before we get started with our bracha, I want to wish Leah a happy birthday. This is her 30th birthday. Wow. And we are going to dedicate this lesson to her to celebrate her birthday.
So sweet.
So soft.
I'm happy to do it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
Let's see where we here. I need to take care of this.
Yeah.
So we're continuing this particular halacha, this particular aspect of Jewish law goes on quite a bit in the Torah. And so we're going to continue this. So we were talking about, yesterday we had learned about the fact that that the whole idea was for this young girl to be able to marry this man. And if he didn't do this, if he didn't marry her, then he had to he had to reduce the amount of money that he had given her father and reduce it from the amount that she would need to pay to be released from service, you might say. There's more to be said about this. The question was asked yesterday. I think Harlan asked the question about, or was it Golda? I'm not sure who paid, or maybe it was Judith. I think it was Judith actually who asked, well, who pays? Who has the money to pay this reduced amount? So we're going to see that there's more to be said about this. Here's the next verse now. Ve'im livno yi'adena. And if he, or should we say, but if he designates her to his son, kemishpat habanot ya'asela, she should be treated just as the girls are treated. She should not be treated as an amah, right? And it defines it a little bit, goes on to the next verse to say what that means. What exactly does the Torah mean by that? So, but the issue here is that, despite this status that it sounds like she has, the truth is she's treated as an equal in terms of the wives. So let's take a look at the Rashi. Ve'im livno yi'adena. So Rashi is going to, and he says ha'adon. In other words, who is the one who's designating her? It is the master, the one whom her father made this arrangement with him. Her father made this arrangement, not her father, but the master. We'll call him there, the Adon. Melamed. So this teaches she'af beno kam tachtav li'ada. So the Torah is telling us that his son too, that even his son can, literally kam means arise in his place, tachtav, in his place, li'ada, to perform this yiyud, to perform this designation. Im yitzeh aviv, if his father so desires. That is, the son's father so desires. Ve'enot tzarich lekidushin, and she does not require, or he does not require, to betroth her. There's a difference between yi'ud and kiddushin. The normal way in which a person, I may have mentioned this before, in which a man acquires a wife is through this process called kiddushin, right? Literally, of course, it means sanctify, but it also has the implication that the relationship the man has with this woman is a unique relationship. That's the implication of this. Okay, but the point is that he doesn't need the formal arrangement of kiddushin acherim. There's no further act of betrothal that's required if, in fact, the son, she is designated, and the son to the son. Ella Omer, but the son would say, Allah, okay, the son would say to her, Hare at miyu'edetli. Now, some of you are familiar with the formula that's used when a man marries a woman, a Jewish man marries a woman, and says, Hare at mekudeshetli. Right? Notice that's the kiddushin. Hare at, behold, you are sanctified to me. And he says the whole statement he makes is Harei at meyuedet li bekesef shekibel avich b'damecha. Okay, so he says, behold, you are betrothed, or I shouldn't say betrothed, right? You are designated to me with the money that your father received, right? And that money that your father received. And we know, I mentioned already, that betrothal in Jewish law can be done in three ways. And one of those ways is giving the woman, in this case, something of value. In this case, it's something that her father received. Now, remember, you're going to find out that this is all referring to a girl who is a minor. She's less than 12 years and a day. And then it goes on, of course, to say, Mishpat habanot, in the way in which the daughters. So what does that mean? Rashi explains, these are the rights that a woman has in her marriage. She'er, I believe is the word, right? Meaning food. This is going to be defined a little bit later because the Torah is going to actually mention these three things. Ksut, clothing. I love that he has to satisfy her with the clothing he gets her. So food, the una refers to conjugal rights. Lovely. Here it is. So it's going to be mentioned explicitly in the text, but that is Mishpat habanot. He cannot deny her any one of these three basic rights that a woman has when she gets married from her husband.
Rabbi,
yes.
In the Rashi above, I don't think you translated bidamecha.
Yeah, I think it means your money.
Well, because it already says kesef.
Damayich. Right.
Oh,
right. In your purchase.
So what it says here,
yes.
So, and then I'll tell you why I'm asking, but it says you're designated to me with the money your father received for your value.
Okay.
But I was wondering if it's related to dam.
It may be in a way, but only sort of in a vague metaphoric kind of way, if it is at all. Okay, but you're right. I mean, the letters are very close. Damim. Okay. And it may have to do with the fact that we do need money to survive. We do need at least something outside of ourselves of value in order to be able to survive. But it doesn't mean for your blood. Okay, and I think it's bedamayich, by the way, which would be the feminine form.
But I just wasn't sure if it was using the word blood as a metaphor for value, for human value.
No, I mean, damim is often translated straightforwardly as money.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, kesef is the one that you're going to be familiar with, right?
And that's in there already. So that
yes,
I was confused.
Yes, it is. So it could also, of course, kesef can also mean silver, but that's because silver was the standard currency that was used.
Right.
I'm going to put this in as you can probably see me typing away.
Yeah.
So that we have that there. All right. Going on. Look at this. I mean, in some ways, I realize as crazy as a situation as this may be, right? I mean, it's not an unusual situation. It's a very unusual situation, I believe, that the Torah is dealing with. But in other words, it's dealing with an extreme case. But being able to deal with extreme cases of what life can sometimes throw at us is very important, and to have that sanctified as well through the words of the Torah. So he's going on now. Im acheret yikach law, I'm sorry. If he takes another wife, it means. If he takes another woman, acheret, right, feminine. If he takes another wife, another woman, she'era, here we go, she'era ksuta v'onata lo yigra, right? And Rashi is going to explain this word she'era. Okay, in other words, and Onkelos already translates it as her food, her clothing, and her conjugal rights, he shall not diminish. She has full rights, and that's the Mishpat habanot. So, all right, let's take a look. I think the Rashi, no, we're ready. Yeah, here. Imach, I'm going to take this away. Here. Im
Check the
acher.
word dam.
Say that.
dam,
I'm sorry. Yes.
the word dam is listed as meaning blood, and the word damim means money.
Right.
And Professor Klein says it's probably derived from Daled Mem Hey, which means to be like, to be equal, to be similar to.
Because
Me domelach.
Right.
yes,
Right.
Domelach. Right. Right. And, right.
Like value of something, the equivalence of something. So that's
The value.
Yeah.
That it had, that money is essentially, yeah, it's very good. That's very interesting, because money, remember, is simply something that we arbitrarily assign. It doesn't, it's not barter. I mean, it's clearly a moving away from that and assigning value to a specific thing. And of course, the money we use right now has no intrinsic value. It's interesting how sophisticated this has all gotten. At any rate, thank you, Shirabeth. That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah, okay. So imacheret yikachlo. So if he takes another woman, Rashi on this, and simply Rashi clarifies this. Aleha. This is from the Mechilta, meaning besides her, besides this woman, he has designated to himself. That's the rest of that verse. So he says, Min ha'ama. He should not reduce it from this ama, from this young girl, sheyi ed lo kvar, whom he has already designated to himself. Literally is what that means. But essentially it means he has this relationship with her. And Rashi goes on to explain. She'era means mizonot. Mizonot would mean food, right? Birkat hamazon, right? So ketuvot. That's in the Talmud defines this word she'era. Ksuta kamashmao, because the word ksut means covering. Lechasot means to cover, meaning clothing. And unata tashmish. Tashmish means conjugal relations. Onwards. Now here we go. V'im shalosh ele lo ya'asela. And if he doesn't do these three. Now when you read this, you think it means she'erak sutav onata, but it's not. That is not what it means. It means if he doesn't marry, if remember, it's the Adon who this is referring to, right? This is all referring to the Adon, because the person who purchased this woman or gave money to her father.
Rabbi, that you're about to give away the first Rashi.
Yes, I know. But the point about this is that we should not think it means these three things. It does not refer to food, clothing, and conjugal rights. Lo ya'asela, if he doesn't do this, and here we go, this answers the question from yesterday, v'yatzah chinam ein kasef. She should go out free and clear, without money. No money involved. If he doesn't do one of these three. So we'll see what it means. Here's the Rashi. V'im shalosh ele lo yasela. Im achat mishalosh ele lo yasela. And if he doesn't do any one of these three things, in other words, when it says if he doesn't do these three things, it might mean all these three things. It means any one of these three things is what Rashi's telling us. Uma hein hashalosh. So what are these three things? Yi'adena lo. Okay, he either designates her to himself, or livno, or to his son, or yigra mipidjona, or if he doesn't reduce the amount to redeem her. But say she should go out. Vezo leya'adalo, this particular person did not designate lo, not to himself, velo livno, nor to his son, vehi lo haya beyada lifdot et atzma. This is it, right? This says, and she didn't have in her hands any money to redeem herself. That was the question that was asked yesterday. Okay. If she doesn't have the funds by which to pay the Adon, the money that he gave. If she doesn't have it, here it is. Fascinating. V'yatzah. That's what the Torah is meaning, that she should go out for nothing. Riba lo yitziah lezo, okay? So Rashi is saying that this particular freedom is more for this particular girl, her going out, lezo, yoter mima sheriba la'avadim. This is more, these requirements, right, that for the master to have to do, it exceeds those that in general apply to regular servants, to regular slaves. Umahi hayitziah, and what exactly are we talking about in her going out? Lelamedcha, to teach you, shetetze besimanim, that she should go out with showing signs of puberty. Vatishhe imo od, and that she should remain with him further, ad shetavi simanim, up until she shows signs of puberty. So normally, right? Normally it's a matter of time, but here it's a matter of showing signs of puberty, physical signs of puberty. Ve'im higiu shesh shanim kodem simanim. And on the one hand, if 6 years were up, remember we talked about the fact that Hebrew slaves essentially had a maximum service of 6 years. If the 6 years arrived prior to her showing signs of puberty, Kfar Lamadnu, we have already learned, Shetetze, that she needs to be released. Shene'emar, as it states later on in Deuteronomy chapter 15, Ha'ivri or Ha'ivriya. It says either the Hebrew man slave or female slave. For avdacha sheishanim, they shall serve you for 6 years. Umahu or omer kan, so ha'amur kan. So what do we mean? If we already know this, right? Why does it add here in this particular passage? V'yatzah. Why does it say she should go out for nothing, without paying anything? The reason is she'im kadmu simanim l'sheishanim, that if in fact her signs of puberty came before the 6 years, teitzei bahen, she should be released through those signs. So whichever comes first, whether it's the 6 years or the signs of puberty, she is released. If in fact he has not designated her for himself or his son, or reduce the amount of money that she would require. Or eine omer shetetze, okay, bevagrut. And the Mechilta now, in analyzing and deconstructing these verses and wanting to make sure that they have an exact understanding of this text, they raise a question, okay, which they're going to debunk, but they're raising it as a possibility. Perhaps actually this means shetetze, that she should only go out ela bevagrut, only when she arrives at the age of 12, right? Talmud lomar. So in other words, when it says, so if she gets to be 12 before the 6 years, or the 6 years are up before she gets to be 12, maybe that's it. Maybe it has nothing to do with the signs of puberty. Maybe it has to do with her actual age at that time. Talmud lomar ein kasef. For that reason, the Torah adds the words ein kasef, without money, not having to pay any money. Lerabot yitziat bagrut. This is to add to the fact that she has to be released at the age of 12. Now, how do we know that she has to be released at the age of 12, supposing she doesn't show signs of puberty? We've already determined that because we understand that she cannot even be sold to begin with if she's over the age of 12 years and a day. We've already determined that in a previous verse. So we know for a fact that if she can't even be sold, well, then for sure, if she reaches that age, she has to go free. So that we've already established.
And by the way, mine says 12 and a half.
Okay. You're right. I'm sorry. She's a na'ara between 12 years and 12 years and 6 months. There's actually 3 stages, halachic stages to a woman's development. She's a minor at 12 under 12 years. From 12 years and a day to 12 years and 6 months, she's considered a na'ara. That's the word that's used. And then from that point, she is called a bogeret, which would mean an adult. At any rate, okay. The imlo ne'emru shnehem were not with, if it didn't say she should go out chinam ein kesef, right? If it didn't say this additional amount of words, right? Hayiti omer, I might have said, I might have art, v'yatsa chinam, if it just says she should go out free, right? Zo bagrut. That would refer to, thank you, Lauren, 12 years and 6 months. L'chach ne'emru shnehem. And for that reason, both have stated that she should go out chinam and kesef, which means exactly the same thing. Chinam means for nothing, and kesef means without money, right? Shelo liten pitchos, so that there should be no opportunity, leval hadin, for the litigant to find an excuse. Pitchon peh means literally to open his mouth, lachalok, to argue over this. And I just wrote in the notes. In other words, here's the point that Rashi's making. The addition of the words ein kesef comes to teach us that regardless of her reaching the age of 12, well, I guess I need to change that, right? She is released if she shows signs of puberty. So we can say, you're right. I mean, Bogred is 12 years and 6 months. So let's just change this.
Yeah.
Sorry, too many letters.
So
Yes, this is it. By the way, this is the end of this particular section now. So we go on. I'll just read the next verse, but it's pretty late at this point, and so I'll tell you what. Instead of going on, maybe some of you would like to comment. Any thoughts?
Well, I think it's pretty cool about the woman, the 3 things. God, I forget the thing that, though, can you just say all 3 of those things that she's entitled to again?
Yes, food, clothing, and conjugal rights.
unless you're talking about designation and those.
Okay, no, those 3 things
Mhm.
conjugal rights. So
Mhm.
that means, a woman is
Yep.
is to be pleasured.
Correct.
And what's so cool about that I've just heard, by the way, from growing up and, listening to people talk, is that Jewish men are great lovers.
They're supposed to be.
They get more practice. I don't know.
No, but the all kidding aside, for us to be talking about these kinds of things as part of our learning, this is awesome. These are the little gems of why I stick in through all the horrible stuff so that we get to the stuff. No, but you have to go through, the whole landscape of the times, but then to also know that people are talking about this to this kinds of depth of what somebody has a right to, and then following through on it. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think, okay, so I guess I might make 2 points out of this. One is that the general culture in the past, maybe it's less true now than it used to be, all right? But in the past, I think that Western culture suggested that women's role was to pleasure men, all right? And here we see from a very, very early standpoint that is not the Torah's point of view. The Torah's point of view is that the man because the man has so many more privileges or control or whatever, that simply means that he has then more responsibility to make sure that his wife is satisfied. I think it also has to do with allowing for the fact that she probably wants to have, that many, many, many women want to have children. and that's part of this too, that he shouldn't deny her that extreme satisfaction, assuming that she wants to have a child. But I think it also, without any question, has to do with the pleasure of sex. No doubt about it. Okay. So I think that's an important point. The second point that I wanted to make, which I sort of have suggested already, is that if religion isn't about life, if religion doesn't speak to every element of life, then it doesn't really count in the same way.
Amen.
Okay. I'm sorry?
I said, amen.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, it even talks about how you behave in going to the bathroom.
Rabbi, I know we're not supposed to do this, but this is me at 12 and a half. And I don't think I was ready. First of all, I hadn't at 12 and a half reached puberty. That happened like about 15.
Well, some people it takes a little longer.
I wasn't ready.
Lauren,
to be
TMI.
designated. I wasn't ready to be designated to anybody and
You
have
were-
conjugal rights with anybody.
You're lucky then.
I'm just glad you don't take things personally, Lauren.
Yep. 12th birthday month, me. Okay. All right. So my question is, the poor girl who just got sent out without any money, she's got to hook up with somebody really fast.
I
Or
think
have
she goes,
some place to go.
I think she
Was
goes
there
back
a
to her
woman's
father's house.
house for those women who were like now no food, no clothing, and definitely no
Okay.
sex?
Golda, I believe she would go back to her family. All right. I think she would return to her father's house. But I think the other piece here that's so important, right? She doesn't require a get, right? She doesn't. Look, there's a great deal of sensitivity regarding women's status and not having them treated as if they were prostitutes.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And the fact that she had now been in a situation where she might have intimate relations with a man and now was released, I think it was very, very important for her status to be, cleansed, that there was no implication. And I think that was partially also the reason why the Torah, at least from her, I think and again, we can discuss this, that she had to be released before she achieved maturity. But we should never, ever forget that back then, it wasn't uncommon for women to be married at 12. That
Or earlier.
yeah, or earlier. I mean, the level of maturity, first of all, the amount of work, right, and responsibilities. They had big families because of infant mortality, but in general, they had very large families. And essentially, the older children wound up helping with childcare. So they were given responsibility. Basically, we've put off and put off and put off, maturity. On the other hand, of course, people still mature physically earlier. Okay. And so now there's this disconnect between physical maturity and mental maturity. But back then, I'm pretty sure that, my great grandmother was probably married by the age of 12, or 12 and a half. Quite possibly. It isn't like it's been going on for such a long time. The 20th century, in the course of 100 years, the world changed. I mean, totally changed. For one,
they probably made shidduchs. They had that. Much earlier even. It was pretty much set who you were going to marry from about the time you were like 6.
And I think the expectations of marriage were different to some extent. Right? I mean, falling in love, okay? I mean, look, they mentioned Jacob falling in love with Rachel. So it's not like they weren't aware of it. But essentially, getting married was a partnership, primarily a partnership. And again, I think this raises sort of interesting things for us to think about in terms of modernity. And I think of how World War I just totally changed the world. The world was so different after World War I. at any rate. Maybe a good place to stop at this point. So we'll stop. I'm going to stop the recording and thank those who are following.